Are you a civilized human being? Take this quiz to find out. Question 1. When you're at a concert, should you A. Screech at the top of your lungs so loud that people around you can't even hear the music? B. Turn on a bright light that blinds everyone behind you for the entire show? C. Throw an object at the performer? D. None of the above. The correct answer is D. Question 2. When you're on a plane, should you A. Throw a tantrum when you're annoyed? B. Try to open one of the doors mid-flight? C. Get so drunk and belligerent that you have to be arrested? D. Sit in your seat and shut up, you goddamn Neanderthal? The correct answer is D. And finally, question 3. When you're on public transportation, should you A. Stay in one spot and keep a modest volume so as to not bother other passengers? B. Play loud music from a speaker? C. Dance around wildly, almost hitting other passengers with your flailing limbs? D. Force other passengers to be the unwilling audience of your annoying social media videos? Need a hint? Take a look at the faces of the other passengers in the last 3 videos. The correct answer is A. If you got all of these questions wrong, I've got bad news for you. Your status in society has been downgraded from human to animal. Please locate the nearest zoo and admit yourself. Hi, welcome to How to Be a Person in Civilized Society. It seems a lot of people have forgotten how to behave in public, or perhaps they never knew. So I thought it might do us all some good to brush up on some of the basic rules of social etiquette. Let's start with situational awareness. Being aware that when you're in public, there are other people around you living their lives much like you are living yours. And it's polite to physically accommodate their presence, especially when their presence is hurtling towards you at a high velocity. Frankly, there are too many people these days who don't pay enough attention to their surroundings. They cross streets or paths without looking first. Or they do look first before crossing, but only in one direction. Can I tell you, the number of times I have seen this with my own eyes is unreal. I dare say it's an epidemic. And I mean specifically only looking in one direction before crossing, and it's the wrong direction for the lane that they're stepping into first. Like they have the good sense to look before crossing, but they don't look in both directions. Okay, I'll just look this way, and then I'll just leave the rest up to fate. La-di-da-di-da. Buddy, you're halfway there. Just turn your head the other way too, and you're golden. What's going on in your head? Have you never looked left before? My God, there's a whole other world over here. Here in Chicago, there's a bike path that runs alongside the lake. And in the summer, there are lots of people biking. And still, I see people all the time stroll up to the bike path, look in one direction, and then start walking onto the path right in front of cyclists. I've seen collisions. I have seen cyclists straight up crash into people who crossed after only looking in one direction. I mean, it's obliviousness. There's no other word for it. I want to read this Reddit comment because it made me laugh. At one time in my life, I was lucky enough to find myself with enough money saved up to finally take my mother to another country as a thank you for everything you've done, because we grew up really poor without even knowing what a holiday was. Fast forward to it being the most stressful, exhausting, and frustrating 2 weeks of my life, as she was in such awe of her surroundings, she constantly, and I mean within every 15 to 30 steps type constantly of the entire trip, walked in front of oncoming people and bicycles, even onto the road into oncoming traffic about a dozen times. I'm just thankful that the train stations we attended had barriers, because I'm sure she would have fallen onto the tracks as well if I had given her the chance. Being in other people's way is generally kind of a problem in public. Like for example, when a group of people expand to fill the available space on a sidewalk, much as a gas expands to fill the available space in a container, forcing others to either try to awkwardly squeeze around them or ask to pass around them. Now, is this the worst breach of etiquette? No. But when people do it, does it fill me with a supernova of rage powerful enough to devour worlds? Yes, it does. Thank you for asking. The craziest thing is when a group is approaching from the opposite direction, they see you, and they don't make room for you? Honestly, sometimes when that happens, I just come to a complete stop. I'm just... Because then, if you walk into me, it's obviously your fault, not mine. You're gonna decide how this goes down. You know, as I was writing this, I remembered that I actually experienced the Gen Z stare that people were talking about not too long ago. And let me first say, I'm not trying to push any negative stereotypes. The vast majority of Gen Z people that I've met are very socially aware. This was an exception to the rule. I was walking down the sidewalk, and this small group of like either older teenagers or maybe young 20s people were talking and taking up the whole width of the sidewalk. And there was no way around them because it was flanked by a building on one side side and a gate on the other side. So I walked up to them and said nicely, hey, can I squeeze through you guys here? And they all stopped talking and looked at me and just stared at me silently for a couple seconds. Like I'm a weirdo for interrupting their conversation. You must know you're in my way, because it's kind of a narrow sidewalk. There's 5 of you standing in a circle, and also I just told you you're in my way. And so then I went, could I pass through you guys here? And one of the boys went, yeah, man, you can pass through. What was that? I also want to emphasize that as annoying as all this is, I don't put the blame squarely on the people. I put the blame here first and foremost on car-centric urban design. Most sidewalks are more narrow than they should be because cities, at least in the US, are largely built to accommodate cars. Urban cities should be designed for pedestrians. I made a whole video about it. So I'm mad at that first and oblivious sidewalkers second. The environment causes the problem. And on the topic of getting in people's way, it's also annoying to stand right in a doorway blocking people. When you walk into or out of a place, keep going. Unless you are a door, don't stand in a doorway. On a similar note, when you come to the end of an escalator, keep moving. Don't just stop, because there's very likely a line of people coming up behind you. And it's one thing when people just don't walk at all after stepping off an escalator, because at least in that case, I can chalk it up to them just not paying attention. The more baffling thing is when someone reaches the end of an escalator and walks a little bit, but still not enough for people behind them to get around them comfortably, and they just look at their phone. I'm talking about gets to the end of an escalator, step, stop, phone. Wow, what a fascinating choice. What an interesting spot to choose to stop walking. At the end of a human conveyor belt. Also, while I'm on the topic of escalators, this is not an etiquette violation like the other things I've been talking about, but it's something most people do, and I just want to address it. This is a PSA more than a complaint. When you step onto an escalator, you can keep walking. There's stairs. There's no rule that says you have to stand still. And you'll get to the end faster if you just keep walking. I get it if you've already been walking a bunch and you want to just rest for a minute, but people do this on all escalators everywhere. Please, can we normalize walking on escalators? Let's start a movement. No pun intended. Also, on the topic of spatial awareness, let's talk about people who stand or walk too close to you. Look, I don't know the exact right distance to stay from other people, but I know when you're too close. Hey, back up. You're inside me. Now, of course, the standard distance people keep between each other varies depending on the culture. Like Austria, for example, is one of the countries with the smallest average distance between people. You travel there and get off the plane and they're like, hello, welcome to Austria. So it might be different if you're in another country. It also feels like people are generally more rude these days. Most of us probably have a story about a stranger being exceptionally rude within the past few years. Sometimes someone does something to me that's so rude that I'm like, oh, I must be misunderstanding this situation, because nobody could possibly be this rude. And then I'll be sitting on my couch later thinking about it, and I'm like, that motherfucker really said that shit to me. Sometimes I do clock the rudeness immediately, but I still don't say anything most of the time. A couple years ago, I was walking through the airport with a mask on, and this is at a time when most people aren't wearing them anymore. I'm just wearing it as a precaution. So I'm walking through the airport, and some guy who's walking in the opposite direction leans over as he passes by me and says, that mask doesn't work. Now, what I wanted to say back to him was, your fucking brain doesn't work, but you still use that. But I held back because I don't like to escalate in those situations, even though he would have deserved it. It makes me mad that people act like assholes and just feel like they can get away with it. People just have no couth anymore. No couth! No couth! Then there are the people who have the sound on their phones playing out loud instead of using headphones or just watching silently. I touched on this in a previous video. All this comes down to is strangers around you don't want to hear crap from your phone. Even though you could argue that it's not louder than just talking to someone next to you. The fact of the matter is, audio from a device is more annoying and distracting than a conversation. I don't know the human psychology behind it, that's just how it is. Now, the worst is when they do it on a plane. You're captive for several hours. I thought it was standard airline policy to prohibit audible sound coming from a phone, but on the last flight I was on, someone was doing that and the flight attendants didn't say anything. So I looked it up later, and a lot of airlines have no official policy that I could find about playing audio on devices without headphones. Dude, here in Chicago, even the buses have a rule against that. Look, nobody wants to hear what you're listening to, and headphones and earbuds are dirt-ass cheap. Also, how about people that have phone calls on speaker mode so that everyone around can hear the whole conversation?
You don't drink coffee, do you?
No. When making a phone call in public, this is not how you do it. Take it off speakerphone. There's no need for us to hear both sides of the conversation.
Like, what are they doing? Is it an attention thing? Do they just want everyone else to listen to them? I like this video from Inside Edition where they go on a train and confront all the people behaving rudely.
There were lots of seat hogs. This is a completely packed train, and you're hogging a seat with a pizza and a piece of luggage. There's room up above. Why don't you put your bag up here?
Okay.
Ma'am, would you like to sit down?
I would love to
Come
sit
on.
down. Thank you very much.
Of course.
I wish there was a whole TV show like this, just catching people in the act of doing rude things. And it was hosted by Chris Hansen from To Catch a Predator. So when he walks out and confronts people, they're like extra terrified. Whoa, 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 what is this show? Why don't you take all the seats? Now let's move on to a topic that might be a little more controversial. Dogs, or more specifically, people who want to bring their dogs absolutely everywhere. Stores, post offices, libraries. By the way, this isn't coming from a place of personal irritation. I like dogs. If I see a dog in a store, I go, doggy! But just because I'm okay with it doesn't mean other people are. I'm also not the one running a place of business that could be defiled by a dog. The problem is, dogs are kind of unpredictable. They might bite someone, even if they've never bitten someone before. It happens.
A 3-year-old boy was bitten in the face by a dog inside the Walmart on Mill Plain Boulevard. The boy had to get stitches.
They might make a mess because they have to go potty or they want to mark their territory.
This lady came around the corner with her dog. Look. Poop. Poop. Whoosh.
They also leave behind fur and dander and sometimes slobber. They bark. And also, a lot of people are allergic to dogs. The rest of society shouldn't have to put up with all that when they just want to go to the store. The reason we make exceptions for service dogs is they tend to be highly trained. Although, as I learned while making this video, there are no legal certifications for being a service dog, so there's no verification process. Some people even take their dogs onto the bus, like this guy who held up my bus for 5 minutes arguing with the bus driver about whether or not he was allowed to bring his non-service animal dog on board.
The only question you're allowed to legally ask is if you service animal.
Come on, like, we got sentenced to be like, what the f***?
According to the official rules, you can't bring a dog onto the bus because, of course you can't. The problem isn't even necessarily your dog. Your dog might be a sweetie patootie, but if they allow dogs onto the bus as a rule, that means dogs who are aggressive or aren't well trained are also allowed onto the bus. And in a cramped space where people are packed tightly together, that's a hazard. When I ride the bus, I don't want to have to worry about my nose getting bitten off. There's already a non-zero chance of that happening just with the people on there. Also, bus rides are very shaky and jerky. The dogs I've seen in them are like sliding around and trying not to fall over. I'm sure it's not a fun experience for them. It's a different story if we're talking about small dogs that the owner can hold or keep in a purse or a bag or a backpack. That eliminates most of the problems, except they can still bark. And some dog owners will say, what am I supposed to do if I'm walking my dog and I want to go into a store? I don't want to leave it tied up to a pole outside. Here's what you do. Don't bring your dog with you to run errands. I know that's inconvenient, but that's part of the responsibility of dog ownership. It's what you're signing up for. Part of the price of dog ownership is inconvenience. I get that people love their dogs, but dude, you can't expect every facet of society to accommodate your dog. Next, we've got movie theaters. Movie theater behavior has gotten especially bad, apparently. I say apparently because I've only been to the movie theater like once in the past 5 years, but I see others complaining about this a lot.
I went to the movie theater yesterday. All movie theater etiquette, it's gone. It doesn't freaking exist anymore.
Now, there are two big rules for movie theater etiquette once the movie starts. Big rule number one is don't use your phone, or your laptop for that matter. I feel like everyone should know this at this point. Some theaters show multiple disclaimers telling you not to use your phone during the movie. People come to the theaters to be engrossed in the movie on the big screen, not to see your TikTok For You page. Just keep it in your pants. Your phone, I mean. Well, your wiener too, if you have one. I know our attention spans have been fried, but you can sit through a 2 to 3 hour movie without scrolling social media. And when the movie ends, then you can take it out. Your phone, not your wiener. That still has to stay in your pants. Big rule number 2 is don't talk.
Normalize shutting the f up at the movie theater. Because I just had to leave the movie theater early because the yapping, it was insane. And unfortunately, this is not the first time I've had to leave a movie early because people kept on talking over the movie.
The exceptions are if something funny happens on screen that makes the theater laugh, you're allowed a little. Or if there's a jump scare that makes everyone scream, you can go, but don't have full-on conversations. Like, are you a part of this movie? Is your name in the credits? It's not? Then shut up! Look, we've all got some blind spots when it comes to this stuff. The important thing is that we learn the rules and do our best to follow them. Anyway, hit the subscribe button to join my clubhouse, where everyone is on their best behavior and follows proper etiquette. And if you want to hear me rant about something else, check out this video.